On June 11, 2026, a judge in Essen asks a routine question. He asks both sides whether they would like to settle. This is standard. Most civil cases in Germany end right here, in the first 10 minutes, before anybody has to say anything difficult out loud. The bank says no. The 83-year-old woman on the other side of the room says no. 18 months earlier, at 6:15 on a Saturday morning, a fire alarm rings in a building where nothing is burning. Firefighters arrive. A police officer arrives. A man from a private security contractor arrives. They walk through the building, they check a room, they find nothing wrong, and they leave. Here are the numbers. 3,256 safe deposit boxes. A wall, 40 centimeters thick, 4 hours. And 10,300 euros. 3 things worth holding on to. The only alarm that works that weekend is not an alarm the bank is paying for. One of those 4 numbers does not measure anything physical, and of the rooms in that building, one gets checked and one does not. Police will eventually put 350 investigators on this case. They will catalog 30,000 objects. They will seize several thousand hours of video. They will rent an entire building just to hold the work. No one has been arrested. No one has been charged. So how does a crew empty more than 3,000 boxes inside a building that firefighters and police already walked through that same morning? And why is the bank the one standing trial? To understand why that last number matters, you have to understand what a German safe deposit box actually is. And what it is, mostly, is a ritual. You make an appointment. You do not walk in. You arrive at the branch, you show identification, you sign a register with the date and the time, and an employee walks you downstairs. There are 2 locks on the drawer. The bank holds 1 key. You hold the other. Neither key works alone. The employee turns the bank's key, steps back, and leaves the room. Because the second half of the ritual is that nobody watches. You get a small windowless room, a steel drawer, and as much time as you need. The room is cold, it is underground, and the heating in that building was designed for offices, so people keep their coats on. Nobody asks what is inside. That is the entire product. The bank does not want to know. The register does not record it. And no camera in the building is pointed at that drawer. Which is to say, the thing being sold here is not a box. It is the absence of a witness. In Gelsenkirchen-Buhr, in a branch of the Sparkasse, 3,256 of these drawers sit in a single room. One of them belongs to a woman in her 80s. She has recently sold an apartment. The proceeds, roughly 391,000 euros in cash and jewelry, are the whole of her retirement. She does not move it into an investment account. She puts it in a drawer. Another belongs to a man whose home has been broken into more than once. He does the arithmetic anyone would do. His apartment has a door and a lock. The bank has a vault. He moves what is left of his things across town. The other 3,254 belong to people doing the same thing for the same reason. Gold coins, inherited rings, cash that somebody's parents earned in this city and never trusted to a screen. Some of these drawers have not been opened in 10 years. On paper, this is the safest decision any of them will ever make with their money. The Sparkasse does not have to advertise these drawers. Sparkasse means savings bank, and the Sparkassen are public institutions, tied by law to the towns and districts whose names they carry. They are not a brand anybody chose. For most people in Buhr, this is simply where money goes. Trust is not a claim this institution has to make. It is the assumption the institution is built on. Every one of these people signs a contract to get that drawer. The contract runs a couple of pages. It covers access hours, the annual fee, what happens if a key is lost, what happens if the customer dies, and somewhere inside it is a figure. It describes the maximum the bank will pay back if the contents are ever gone. Nobody reads that line. So, 6 layers stand between that room and the street. Start outside and count inward. The first layer is a parking garage. It sits directly against the bank building. It shares structure with it, and it is open to the public. Anybody can drive in. Anybody can park. Nobody is asked why. That is not an oversight. That is what a parking garage is for. The second layer is a door. It connects the garage to the bank building, and it is a fire escape, which means it is built to open outward, from the inside, in an emergency. From the garage side, it does not open at all. This is the standard arrangement in thousands of German buildings. The third layer sits behind that door, a motion detector, watching a corridor that should be empty. The fourth is the branch's burglar alarm, wired to register a break-in and to report it upward, automatically, without anyone in the building having to be awake. The fifth is a contract, a private security company with people who can be sent to the address when something reports. And behind all of it, the sixth, the vault, 40 centimeters of reinforced concrete, not a door that has to be defeated, but a wall, poured, structural, part of the building itself. Inside it, 3,256 steel drawers in rows. The bank does not know what is in a single one of them. That was the arrangement: concrete, steel, a room with no windows. The vault has 4 walls. 3 of them face other parts of the bank. The fourth faces a room the branch uses to store paper, an archive, shelves, folders, records nobody has needed in years. From the vault's point of view, this is the safest wall in the building, because there is nothing on the other side of it except the bank's own filing. None of this is negligence. A German court is going to spend years on exactly that distinction, so it is worth getting right. 6 layers is not nothing. Most buildings in Europe holding that much value have fewer. There is one more system in the building, and nobody in this story counts it as security at all: smoke detectors. Every commercial building in Germany has them. They are a matter of fire code rather than crime, and the people who install them are not thinking about safe deposit boxes. Every one of those 6 layers is built to answer the same question: is somebody trying to get in? The garage watches nothing, because a garage is not a defended space. The door resists pressure from the wrong side. The motion detector waits for movement that should not be there. The alarm listens for a breach. The security firm waits for a call. The wall waits for a tool. Not one of them is designed to notice a person who is already inside and standing still. A man standing in a dark archive room at 4 in the morning produces no signal in any of these systems. He is not moving through a door. He is not breaking a window. He is not touching the wall yet. He is a person in a cold room, waiting. And there is no sensor in the building whose job is to have an opinion about that, which only matters if there is some way to be inside this building without ever having entered the bank. Which brings the whole thing back to the first layer. The garage is not the street. Nobody has ever written that sentence down. Here is what investigators can reconstruct, and here is where the reconstruction stops. Both matter. What they can state is the sequence of the building: garage, door, corridor, archive, wall, vault. 6 layers, taken in order. What they cannot state, and have said publicly that they cannot state, is how long the people who took that route were inside the building before the first drawer came open. Hours is possible. Longer is possible. That question is still open. Start with the garage, because the garage is the reason any of this works. A public parking garage is a place where the ordinary rules of noticing do not apply. A person sitting in a parked car is not doing anything. A person carrying a bag through a stairwell is not doing anything. A person who comes back on a Tuesday and again on a Thursday is not doing anything either, because nobody is keeping the list that would turn it into a pattern. The garage is not watched by the bank. The garage is not the bank. So what actually stands between a public garage and a bank archive? According to police, 2 things: a fire door that cannot be opened from the garage side, and a motion detector behind it. Investigators later confirmed that the locking mechanism on that door had been manipulated. They also confirmed that the motion detector behind it was covered over with tape. That is the perimeter. Once those 2 sentences are true, the connection between a garage anybody can park in and the inside of a Sparkasse is a doorway, and nothing in the building registers a single human being using it. The burglar alarm never sounds, not once, across the entire weekend. It is not beaten in the sense of being attacked. It is bypassed in the sense of never being asked a question. Now the archive. The archive is the only room in that building where a person can work on the vault wall and not be seen working on it. It is not a customer area. Nobody has business in there on a holiday weekend. And the wall it shares with the vault is 40 centimeters of reinforced concrete, which is a serious wall, and which is also, from inside a closed room in an empty building, a matter of time and nothing else. The wall is not the hard problem. The hard problem is arithmetic. There are 3,256 drawers in that room, and every one of them is a separate steel lid that has to be forced individually. Whatever is being done to open them is being done 3,000 times, by hand, in a windowless room with no real ventilation, while a clock runs. They will not get all of them. Police later confirmed that valuables were left behind. Not everything in that vault leaves that vault, which raises the question that has followed this case since the first week. Did somebody tell them? A security consultant and former state criminal investigator, Klaus Nachtigall, has said publicly that in his assessment, one can assume there was an inside tip, because the approach is too direct and too precise. The Interior Minister of North Rhine-Westphalia, Herbert Reul, has been more careful. He has described a few oddities that make outside help at least not improbable, and has said that everything points to a highly professional group. Prosecutors have said something narrower and more important than either. There is no concrete suspicion against anyone, not against Sparkasse employees as insiders, and not against anybody else. 3 statements, 3 different grades of certainty, and only the third one is evidence. There is one more thing about the preparation, and it says more about these people than the wall does. According to Reul, the vault was contaminated with various chemical liquids to obscure DNA traces. That is not part of taking the money. That happens on the way out. Somebody worked out, in advance, what to do in the part of the night when the bags are already full. The math is simple. The logistics are not. There are 3,256 boxes and one weekend. Saturday, December 27th. The building is empty in the way German buildings are empty between Christmas and New Year, which is to say completely, for days at a stretch, with nobody scheduled to be anywhere. Concrete does not come apart cleanly. Working through a wall like that produces dust, and dust in an enclosed room does not settle. It hangs, it drifts, it goes wherever the air in the building goes. At 6:15 in the morning, a smoke detector reads that dust as smoke. The fire alarm sounds. And now the thing that nobody planned for is happening, and it is happening to both sides at once. Firefighters are dispatched. A police officer comes. Employees of a private security company come as well. 3 separate sets of people, from 3 separate organizations, arrive at a Sparkasse in the dark on a holiday weekend because a device in the ceiling says something is wrong. They go in. They check a room, an anteroom, near the entrance. They look for what firefighters look for, which is fire, and heat, and smoke, and a source. They find none of those things. They do not go down to the archive. On the other side of one wall from where these people are standing, according to what police established later, are the people who set the alarm off. No record exists of what those minutes are like from the other side of that wall, so they will not be described here. What is on the record is the timing. 3 organizations respond to an alarm at a bank on a holiday morning. The alarm is correct. The response is correct. The outcome is nothing. Nothing is burning. So there is nothing to report, and nothing to open a case about, and no reason for anyone to think about a vault. The fire service answers a fire question correctly. The security company answers a security question correctly. The police officer sees a building with no broken glass and no forced door, because there is no broken glass and no forced door. Everyone goes home. 4 hours pass. Then 30 minutes more. At 10:45 that morning, the first drawer comes open. The last one the system records is opened at 14:44. Between those 2 timestamps, in a room with no windows, more than 3,000 steel lids are forced, and the contents of a neighborhood are put into bags. That room has no daylight in it, and never has. Whatever happens in there across those hours happens under work lights, in concrete dust, in a space built to hold paper and silence. How much longer they stay in the building after that, and how long it takes to carry it all out, police have said openly they still do not know. What witnesses see, that night and into Sunday, is men in a parking garage stairwell carrying large bags. Nobody calls anybody. Men carrying bags in a garage are men carrying bags in a garage. And there is one detail from the video that investigators pointed out early, because it is the kind of thing that convicts people years later. The men are not in anonymous black. They are wearing clothing with visible brand logos and gloves in bright colors. Early on Monday morning, December 29th, A black Audi RS6 drives up to the exit of the parking garage. The men inside are masked. One of them puts an arm out of the window and presses the button for the barrier, the way anybody leaving a garage presses the button for the barrier. The barrier lifts. The car goes. The license plate on it had been stolen in Hanover. At 3:58 on Monday morning, a fire alarm sounds in the same building for the second time. This is the one that works. Police and firefighters come back. This time they search the building properly, floor by floor, and in the basement they find a hole. It is a hole large enough for a person, punched through 40 centimeters of reinforced concrete, and on the other side of it is a room containing 3,256 opened drawers, and the paper and packaging of several thousand lives. It takes 2 days for anybody to learn that this happened. By the time the first officer looks through that hole, the people who made it have had a day and a half of daylight. What follows is one of the largest criminal investigations in the history of North Rhine-Westphalia. It starts as a normal team and does not stay one. The unit is named for the tool. 230 officers, then 120 more, 350 in total, working in 3 shifts, 7 days a week. Investigators catalog 30,000 individual objects. They seize several thousand hours of video. Several 100,000 more items are still sitting in that vault, waiting to be photographed, examined, and returned to whoever can prove they owned them. The police rent a building. Not an office, a building, because there is nowhere in the existing station to put the case. On January 19th, officers begin taking statements from the victims. Every one of them, individually, by appointment, each asked to describe from memory the contents of a drawer they may not have opened in years, and to bring whatever proof they still have. The process runs for weeks. By May, police begin handing items back to the people who can establish they owned them. In January, German television broadcasts a public appeal on Aktenzeichen XY, the long-running program the country uses for unsolved crimes. Dozens of tips arrive that evening, then hundreds more. A police spokesman describes it as a flood that simply does not stop, coming from forensic specialists, from investigators in other states, and from members of the public who noticed something small in the garage footage that everybody else had watched straight past. None of it produces a hot lead, not in January, not in February, not in the months after that. The hunt for the people who did this runs into the chemistry. Whatever was poured across that vault on the way out did its work. Months of forensic effort in a room full of surfaces produces no name. But a second inquiry opens, and this one is not about the crew at all. The Interior Minister reports to a committee of the state parliament, in the closed portion of the session, on what happened in that building at 6:15 on December 27th. Several firefighters, one police officer, staff from a private security company. An anteroom checked, nothing found. The exact sequence of that response becomes a subject of investigation in its own right, which means the most consequential document in this entire case is not a fingerprint and not a frame of video. It is a fire alarm log. That log establishes something no witness could. On the morning of December 27th, hours before the first drawer was forced, an alarm sounded in that building. 3 organizations answered it, and the building was cleared as normal. This is the mistake, and it belongs to nobody in a mask. The log does not help catch anyone. It never has. What it does is change who has to answer, and it is the reason that 18 months later there is a bank sitting on the wrong side of a courtroom in Essen. Everything after this is arithmetic. February 19th, 2026. Around 200 customers come to a meeting with the leadership of the Sparkasse and the officer running the investigation. The executives apologize. They apologize for the burglary, and they apologize separately for how little anybody was told afterward. By March, the first money moves. A lawyer in Datteln recovers roughly 250,000 euros for 11 clients, not from the bank, from their home contents insurers, because those 11 had happened to buy an additional clause years earlier and had kept lists and could prove what had been in the drawer. The same lawyer says he represents around 650 customers, with claimed losses of close to 51.5 million euros. On June 11th, the first 2 civil cases reached the district court in Essen. The first plaintiff is the woman in her 80s. She is asking for 391,000 euros. Her lawyer tells the court that this was the money from the apartment she sold, that it was her entire provision for old age, and that she now has nothing. The second plaintiff is the man whose home had been broken into more than once, and who moved what was left of it into a bank because a bank has a vault. The Sparkasse's position is the contract.
Paragraph 7.
A box is covered to a maximum of 10,300 euros, unless the customer specifically agreed on a higher figure. The other side argues the bank should be liable for the whole of it. The judge asks both parties whether they would like to settle. Neither will. There is already a case that shows what comes next. In 2021, a Sparkasse in Norderstedt lost more than 600 boxes to a break-in. The regional court ruled after 2 years. Then came the appeal, and the expert opinion, and the opposing expert opinion, and at the end of May 2026, nearly 5 years on, the higher court set the original judgment aside. There are 2 numbers left in this story. Only one of them was ever real. The loss in Gelsenkirchen is put at somewhere between 30 million euros and, by some accounts, more than 100 million. Nobody knows. Nobody ever knew what was in those drawers, because not knowing was the entire product. The contract says 10,300, and the last thing worth saying about that building is about the device in the ceiling. It was never a security system. Nobody installed it to protect anything of value. It is in that building because German fire code requires it, fitted by people who were not thinking about gold, monitored by nobody in particular, and costing the bank almost nothing. It worked. Twice. The first time, 3 separate organizations came out in the dark to hear what it had to say. A fire service, a police officer, a private security company. None of them spoke the language.